Welcome to the live stream on June 9th,
The June 9th?
2023.
Friday?
Yeah. That's my sister's birthday. Oh, I forgot to text her happy birthday.
Did you send her a card? Oh,
No, I don't do cards, but I should have texted her. I know what to do immediately after this.
At least it served a purpose today in terms of being able to do a stream of some kind. Do we have some people joining the chat?
One.
Excellent.
One person in the chat?
Two.
Two people in the chat?
So for those of you wondering where Mason is, he's actually behind the camera.
Hello.
Nice. And he's monitoring comments because the last time we tried to do a live stream, it proved somewhat challenging to kind of read questions and communicate at the same time. So we're trying something a little bit different. George and I will be answering questions. You guys haven't seen George in a while, so we're going to be answering questions as best we can. And Mason's going to be reading out questions. Teamwork.
Do we got any questions yet?
And Tanya's here to supervise.
Everybody's saying hello.
To make sure that we don't say anything untoward. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this live stream today is to tackle everything that's Airsoft in this week. It's been a busy week of Airsoft. You know, as you guys all probably hopefully know. It's been a...
Someone says hello from Indonesia.
Hello, Indonesia. Or in Indonesia. Hello at Indonesia.
Somebody said huge props to customer service. They had an issue with an order, but they solved it incredibly quickly, and they're happy. So
that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we try.
On behalf of the company, we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't do any. We didn't do anything. But yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, prompt them for questions.
So if you guys have any Airsoft related questions or questions about anything, about the world, the universe, something Carl Sagan might be able to answer. We can't, but if you know who Carl Sagan is, put a thumbs up in the comments.
Aaron says shout out from Ireland.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay. How do... somebody says, do you think the community will come up with enough comments about this latest ruling? Like to hit the goal that we're striving for.
What were we at the last time you checked?
It refreshes every night at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and as of the one last night, we were at 19,000. So assuming our rate,
we have 3 days to make up 80,000.
So
minimum.
At the current rate, unless it exponentially increases, we will not meet our 1,000K or 100,000K goal. But
that shouldn't dissuade you from submitting a comment.
Yeah, the more we have, the main reason that we outlined the goal was to set a goal, not just, to really kind of put something out there of what we want to see. The goal is to be able to get as many comments on there as possible to be able to then hopefully stop the fast track of this specific regulation.
Got a couple of people asking about details on the regulation. Can we give a summary of what it is, just for those that maybe don't quite know yet?
Sure. The basic points of the regulation is, number one, it's very vague. You basically have a multitude of people talking about this, and some people say it's going to affect Airsoft in this way, some people say it's going to affect Airsoft in this way. The basis of it is, if it changes any of the regulation in regards to testing of products for importation and selling, or if it requires certification for those products, it could have a multitude of cascading effects. It could, it could do something of making things impossible to get. It could also do something of raising all the prices of Airsoft guns by 200 or something %. It could do a multitude of things. And the main reason that we at Evike.com are against this regulation is because it's being fast-tracked without any input from the industry and how vague it is. It's not like a situation where I could say, if this regulation passes, your gun now has to be orange. It's not as simple as that. It's more along the lines of, there could be a multitude of ways of enforcement. And that's what we're concerned with. That's what I'm specifically concerned with. And that is why we want to prevent the fast track of this regulation.
Some people are wondering if it applies to just pellet guns and like steel BB guns, or if it also includes Airsoft, and if there was a difference stated.
Well, this is kind of what George was referring to in terms of the vague language. The way that it shakes out right now is that they are categorizing Airsoft and other BB devices as imitation firearms in a way that has been described legally for the government since the late 80s. So in a lot of ways, they're still operating under an outdated description of what is essentially a hobby device. And so lumping them in with firearms is very dangerous because we don't want the public, and especially the regulating bodies, to be under the impression that airsoft devices are guns or are in some way used as a firearm, because they're not. They're sporting devices. And part of why we need to be so vocal now is when the changeover or the handing over of the responsibility of the regulation to the CPSC happens, we want to make sure that our community and industry leaders have some input in the way the devices that we use are described in a legal, federal oversight way, so that we don't get miscategorized and then penalized or overregulated when we shouldn't be. And that's why there was such a push to do something now, so that the regulators that are handing this over from one entity to another see that there is a large community that is concerned about how items are described and then how they will be certified and tracked for any multitude of enforcements.
Yeah, that's a good, I mean, Matt put it pretty spot on.
Changing gears a little bit, somebody's wondering why we send out partial shipments sometimes.
Oh, I mean, partial shipments happen for usually two reasons for the most part. Number one is like if you place an order and something turns out not to be in stock, then you will get the items that are not in stock, and then later, once your item that has been received, is from out of stock to in stock, then that'll ship. That's one reason. The other one is that we have currently 2 warehouses, and the Dallas warehouse is still very new. We really started working on that in 2021. So it really, and it's been growing, and it's been taking a lot of time to get the inventory at both locations, which is the final goal, but it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, we have a large amount of SKUs in our product catalog. So separating those among those among those 2 warehouses for shipment is going to take some time. So right now, the process is if it's in one location or another location, you get 2 different shipments.
And 9 times out of 10, I think you guys would prefer to get the items that are in stock shipped to you first, so that you're not waiting for your entire order because of one hang up on one item.
Yeah.
A couple of people are wondering if they immediately need to go and like spray paint their airsoft guns bright neon colors or change any kind of thing about them.
Despite the rules changeover being handled by a different body, the effective change in enforcement isn't happening yet. There doesn't appear to be any immediate change in enforcement, or rules for that matter. Like always, anytime you are purchasing or selling or transporting an airsoft product, like an airsoft gun, it needs to have a blaze orange tip. In California, there's some additional requirements for brightly colored markings. But federally, the federal mandate is for a bright orange tip or a bright orange barrel, and that will continue. It's just who is enforcing that regulation that is changing. And because it is written vaguely, it is being left open-ended so that testing or certain requirements can be enforced moving forward. They haven't necessarily said that in the bill, but that open-ended language makes everyone concerned that they could do something like change over the regulating body without asking anybody, in the same way that they could change that regulation without having to ask anybody or without any input from us.
Really quick to talk about this is, and this is something the industry really overall hasn't really kind of dealt with in a while, and that is, we're not dealing with the bill. We're dealing with a regulatory body that is not elected, that is an agency that's not, these people aren't elected to create laws for you. This is a law that's on the book of, they can enforce the regulations however they see fit. So,
because the law isn't changing.
Correct. So our concern is, I mean, what if tomorrow, what if the regulation passes and then they want to make amendments to how this regulation is enforced, they could change the definition of what an airsoft gun is. It could then be required to be bright colored, or it could be required to be clear, or a certain FPS rating, or have certain markings, or what have you.
Because that can all fall under the guise of enforcing the current law without having to pass a new law without any input.
Correct. So that's like one of the most scary parts about this, in my opinion, is not the fact that it, the law is vague. It's not saying that your gun's going to be orange now, but these people aren't elected by you. This isn't passed by Congress or anything like that. This is just a federal agency.
We did have a user, the name of Bob. He said that we had a listing, an issue with the listing on the Trax AK-74s, those are Strike Industries ones, right? Just let him know that we will address that.
We'll address that.
Yeah, say Bob will address the listing for the Trax AK-74. We know that it's deemed
Bob Mason says that Mason says that we will address. If you didn't hear him,
the listing. I think we heard him.
Bob will address the listing on the Trax.
We'll fix the listing.
Did you hear? Okay.
It's Dean's. It's Dean's not.
Sorry, Bob. We're playing telephone literally 2 feet from each other.
I mean, Mason, you just get really close to our microphone.
Just lean in there.
Just lean in and just answer the question.
So we're still shipping airsoft replicas, right?
Yeah. Nothing's changing. And even if worst case scenario, we don't get the amount of comments that we want, it doesn't look like anything's going to be changing immediately anyway. It's just making sure that our voices are heard as a community.
Yeah, we want this industry to be able to have some input at the table of how it's regulated.
And, regardless of which way it goes, we were having this conversation earlier in the week. It's like, look, whether the changeover does nothing or does something, is it better to, as a community, as a group, as an industry, do something, or to sit back and do nothing? So making our voices heard and filing those comments is doing something. Even if it ultimately ends up not being necessary, it will still have been an important, I think, message to the regulating body that the industry is a large one and there are users that care about the regulation of that hobby.
And also, I mean, just really quick to pick, it's one of the unique situations, unlike SB 199 or 798, if you're going back that far. This is a situation where anybody in the U.S. can participate, number one. And number two, it takes 5 minutes to submit your comment, or less than. So we would still appreciate you leaving a comment there, just because this is what's concerning to us and what should be concerning to all of the community as a whole. But on the 12th, we're still going to be selling airsoft guns. On the 26th, we're still going to be selling airsoft guns, no matter what happens. We're still going to be, until we're instructed that we cannot sell something under a specific guideline anymore, whatever, we're going to think business as usual. And airsoft games will still happen as usual. And airsoft as a sport will still happen as usual. It's not going to end airsoft. But
somebody is, Easter Bunny's, wondering if price changes will happen if this does affect importation shipments, etc., and then how quickly those price changes might come into effect if they do.
There's really no way to tell if prices will be affected. It really depends on, the big what if there is some regulating body that does require some sort of certification or the need to send something in, which again is still vague. We don't know if that is or isn't happening. But if that happened, and then if on top of that there was an added cost of doing that, and then if it was such an exorbitant cost that would need to trickle down to customers, that's a really big if. 4 places removed. So you can assume for now nothing is changing. And if it ever comes that something like that does change, we will make every effort as a company not to have prices increase.
Yes, I mean, as much as we can, you always want to keep the price of airsoft competitive. That's one of the things that makes airsoft so great, is how affordable it is compared to other sports of similar nature, or if you're comparing it to other industries. So we do want to keep that involved in mind as much as possible, until we know more. Again, very vague, so until we know more. But as of right now, there's no planned price increase structure or anything like that.
Switching gears, we have a newer airsofter says that they're switching from their spring guns, wanting to get an AEG, and they're wondering if you recommend anything for beginners. I would say that we have several videos out on the subject.
Yeah, we just did a short the other day where Mason was pretending to be a new airsofter and asking questions, and he wanted to spend the least amount possible for an AEG, and we recommended a SEMA Sportline AK. And with a battery, mask, charger, and BBs, We got the fictional Airsofter out the door for under $200. So
Not bad.
if you're trying to transition from something spring powered into an AEG and you're trying to spend the least amount possible, that would be an excellent place to start. Watch that short. We go over some products that will directly, influence your searches on the page.
Yeah, we also have a great top 10 beginner's guide. It's like a certain amount of guns under $250 or something like that. Great source of just suggestions and stuff like that.
Okay, just waiting for some questions to populate.
No worries.
Just more similar questions asking about price increase, and does the AASTM even have guidelines on safety? Seems like just performance test, and they just need like an orange tip for functions and safety, which guns already have. So they're just noticing that the guidelines are already there and already kind of being followed.
Yeah, like I said, the as written, the requirements for airsoft guns are not changing.
Yeah.
It's the enforcement or the checking to make sure that those requirements are being followed is changing hands. And we're not sure if that new body is going to be instituting new requirements.
The new body is already in charge. That's already been done.
Okay.
Yeah, the CPSC is now already in charge of regulating these products.
Got it.
That was part of the bill that was signed into law that was mentioned in another video. Forgive me for not knowing it. I mean, one thing to think about is this is something I think about is with all of the different airsoft manufacturers, the amount of variation we have, even in orange tips, is kind of substantial. I'm just to plug some specific brands. KWA's flash hider compared to SEMA's flash hider is entirely different. One's made of plastic, one's made of metal. They're different color oranges.
Yeah.
There really is just no there is some standardization on that, but
they say blaze orange.
Yeah,
but
but if
what is
then
blaze
like
orange?
ATSM testing, for example, could require a specific pigment of government approved orange, which would then have to go into testing. Like there's a whole bunch of different things that then can go into this.
Switching gears again, somebody says, how come shell ejecting airsoft guns are not more common?
Well, if you've ever used a shell ejecting airsoft gun like in a game, it can be quite a pain to remember to go back and grab your shells or rounds or casings in the middle of a game, especially when there's a lot of fire being exchanged between sides. Looking down and trying to find your shells, especially if other people are also using this, the same kind of platform, it's a huge pain. I'll give you like an additional example. Many of us started with Nerf guns right before Airsoft, and Nerf is cool if you're having a battle with a bunch of friends until you've shot all of your Nerf darts, and then the game stops because then everyone has to spend 20 minutes picking up Nerf darts. And that was the least fun part of Nerf. I would argue that's probably the least fun part of a shell ejecting platform in an airsoft game. With that said, the realism afforded by shell ejecting stuff is unparalleled. It is so cool, and it's still worth owning one. It's just not as useful in game, or it's a pain in game.
I mean, a shell catch for at least the shotgun series. I'm specifically referencing like the APS shotgun behind me. In terms of having that ability to catch the shells is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But there are other guns out there that make it even more difficult if you're talking about sniper rifles and revolvers. And
well, I've got my Umarex lever action.
Yeah.
There's no catch for that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe someone has like retrofitted one, but.
Got a question about getting airsoft guns fixed or repaired. Do we have a service, and how do you go about that?
Yes, we have a service at Evike.com. If you go under, there's a customer service tech category, and then you can kind of submit your tech question to there, and then you can kind of do paid for repair based off of that.
You can email tech@evike.com if you have a specific tech-related question, or if you want to schedule sending in your item to be repaired. That's an excellent way to start kind of like that correction log with the tech department, so they're aware that you're sending something in. You can also come by in person and talk to our sales reps in store if you're local. Many of our, if not all of our outpost locations also have tech departments. So if you're closer to one of our outpost locations, you're more than welcome to bring your stuff in there and talk to one of the techs on staff at one of our outpost locations.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions about outposts in 2023? We can answer those questions.
Somebody did ask what other events are coming up.
We have Bad Blood 2023 happening in Pennsylvania, which will be at the end of this month on the 24th. Mason and Tanya will be attending that event. It'll be a lot of fun. This is now I think the 10th Bad Blood that we have that we participated in as like the headlining, like it's, as the headlining sponsor and stuff like that. So it's been a long time. I know there wasn't one during 2020, so that's why I think this one is the 10th, which is pretty dang cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that many.
And how do people keep up to date with our latest sales and information on upcoming sales?
2 ways. You can follow our social media.
That's the best way to know when a sale's dropping, when a BOA is dropping.
Instagram is probably the best source of this, with the story, especially tuning into stories on that. A lot of our sales information is released on that. The second way is our newsletter. Make sure you're receiving our newsletter. If you're not receiving our newsletter, you can always create an account at Evike.com and it'll add you to that, and then you'll be updated on sales information.
Yeah, and then of course, if you don't get either of those, you'll just have to wait like everyone else and see the banner when you're browsing the website on the homepage. I would say that that's probably the slowest way to find out when sales are coming, because by the time you see it on the site homepage, everyone else has already seen it.
Most, and as another word of advice, most of the sales follow normal sale weekends, if you think about it, most of the time. It really, in terms of sales, we have sales a lot of times in terms of coupon codes, but most of those are not applicable to MAP. But MAP discounted sales are determined by the manufacturers, which usually follow guidelines of normal sale events, such as maybe Independence Day that's coming up.
MAP is minimum advertised pricing.
Oh, thank you.
And he says, thank you very much for that. So do we have any more plans for Houston? Any events coming up or anything?
No, Palooza was a big one. If you didn't make it out to Airsoft Palooza, you missed a really fun event, a great turnout. We had over 800 players come out that day. Lots of people played, lots of giveaways were made.
Oh, we gave out so much stuff.
We gave out so much stuff. That was like, an hour and a half raffle? That was so cool. That was a lot of fun. But until next Airsoft Palooza, we probably won't have any big events coming up.
Question for Matt. Is the TM 5.1 High Kappa a good first Airsoft gas blowback pistol?
Yes. Yes, in many ways, yes. Don't fall victim to the suggestion that you need to throw a whole bunch of dynamic precision and cow and garter and Airsoft Masterpiece parts into it to make it a better pistol. It's an extremely capable gas blowback out of the box, but also remember that it's green gas powered and has a plastic slide. It will eventually break, and at that time you can do replacement parts and upgrades. But ultimately, because it's Airsoft, and even the most precision parts will require some hand fitting and knowledge of the gas system, you run into reliability issues if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So my suggestion would be, buy the 5.1 if you like it. It will be reliable for you. It'll be nice and snappy. And then as you break parts, then you can replace it. But don't go spending $500 to $1,000 trying to upgrade it, because I guarantee you it won't work as well as it worked out of the box. I've built so many now.
You can sense a little bit of regret in there, but your High Kappa works pretty well
now. Here's what's frustrating. I've spent so much on my primary High Cap. I've spent so much time and money and effort trying to get it to perform as good as an AW or an EMG DS performs out of the box for $200. And my High Kappa can't handle CO2. So I love my High Kappa, but all of the money I've put into it doesn't make it handle CO2 mags. So
I also think that, for me at least, my experience with Airsoft pistols has always been its performance is of an Airsoft pistol. You cannot compare that to an AEG at all. It's night and day difference. So just be careful of what your expectations are as well.
All right, we have a question about mystery packages. I assume that means the BOA. Are we restocking them, and when's the next one? I think you already answered that, but just reiterate.
We have two types of BOAs.
Cool.
We have ones that are on scheduled releases, such as the Father's Day BOA, which is going to be on June 14th. It's already on the new product section. You can have a preview of what that looks like. It drops at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the 14th.
Those are standard BOAs.
That's a standard BOA.
Standard BOAs, we will tell you a week or two ahead of time that it's coming.
Yep.
Like the Father's Day one.
Yep, and we'll give you a 48-hour notice, a 24-hour notice, all these things on our social media and on newsletters. And then there are flash BOAs. Flash BOAs are determined just randomly.
Yeah.
And
There is no warning.
sometimes we'll post about it, sometimes we won't. Really, realistically, once they go live, if it sells out before we can make a post on it, we probably won't make a post on it. But if it's still available when we decide to showcase it, we'll let you know.
Well, you're not getting a 48-hour it's coming, ever.
No.
Not on a flash
not
BOA.
on a
Flash BOA happens, and when it drops, we might make a post.
So the best way to do that is to be informed to our social media. Or stalk the Epic Deals page.
So a couple of comments worried that we might stop selling airsoft guns, which we definitely won't.
No.
Nope.
But what more can people do to show opposition for this thing that's happening?
If you've already submitted a comment, you were polite, you stated your point, that's as much as you can do right now legally.
Share it with your friends. Spread the word if you've already done that. If you haven't done that, it takes 5 minutes. Go to the page has been linked on our pinned post. You can find a link to it. Sign up. Sign the comment. Post in the comment section. They're noticing. We can tell that they're noticing. So that's a good sign. And just we're gonna keep selling airsoft guns. Even don't worry about it. But as long as you comment and as long as you share with other people, especially other airsofters to go comment, that's the best you can do.
Next Airsoft Appreciation Day, where and when?
Appreciation Day.
The Players Appreciation Day?
The what?
The Airsoft Nation Players Appreciation.
Airsoft Nation, yeah.
That's a good question.
It's a good question. We'll get back to you.
We haven't decided yet. Listen, full disclosure, we're really excited to be doing more outposts. And the Dallas outpost and the Vegas outpost location are taking the majority of our time and effort right now. We really want to get those open. I know we've been talking about them for quite some time. And unfortunately, on the events side of things, the opening of those outposts and the spreading of airsoft to those communities takes priority right now. Once those are up and running and we've had our grand openings for those, then we can start looking at doing more of the player appreciation games and things and starting to do more events. But right now, the focus has to be the outposts because those are intended to serve a large community permanently.
And grow a community there.
Yeah.
A question about behind you. They're wondering what the Barrett Rec 7 is in the top left corner up there, the gray one. Tungsten SBR?
Yep, so that's a Tungsten SBR Crytek Barrett Rec 7 or EMG Barrett Rec 7.
EPS build, right?
It does have an Evike Performance Shop build. Something we tried to go for, with the exception of the salient over my shoulder here, which should have a blue trigger but doesn't, is the Evike Performance Shop, where possible, the whole shtick is we wanted to set it apart from the others with having like an anodized blue trigger. And that was a test case of the Evike Performance Shop ethos before we decided on the blue trigger. So at some point we will swap that to a blue trigger, but just about everything on this wall is an EPS build now.
Except for that King Arms.
Except for
the Lancer systems.
Except for the Lancer.
Yeah, the MPX.
Yeah. But the DD over there.
Yeah, the DD is.
The MP5s. Yeah.
Okay, waiting for some questions to populate.
It's okay if you have any other questions. We're going to be turning off this live stream soon, so please get your questions in the chat now so we can get to those questions.
Someone's wondering if the shotgun's an EPS build.
No. We haven't. Mason and I were playing with the Cam 870 a couple weeks ago, trying to find a blend between the Mark 1, 2, and 3 systems to make a more efficient hybrid, and they proved quite difficult. So
just stick with one.
Just stick with one Mark series and
what's
just
your favorite
enjoy from
Mark
there.
series, if you were recommending?
One,
Mark
but you can't get that anymore.
Yeah, Mark 1s are tough.
Yeah, but I don't enjoy the Mark 1 loading system.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you'd like an EPS product and you don't see it in stock on our website, you can email eps@evike.com,
Yeah, and then
which is a specific department where you can request something that's out of stock. And usually, between you and me, the only reason an EPS build is out of stock is because there's 1 or 2 items of the internals build list that's out of stock. So the whole thing is marked as out of stock. But if you contact our EPS team, they'll say, oh no, we can build you an EPS M249. We just don't have this piston. Would you like this alternative? And then you guys can go from there. So anything you see on the Evike Performance Shop page is buildable. We just have to sub out 1 or 2 things from the standard EPS build list for you guys.
All right, last one.
Last one.
MP Public Speaking has some math homework that needs doing. Who gets to do it? You or George?
Math
What-
homework?
Math homework.
What kind of math homework?
As long as it's not
just
that
math.
new. How do they learn now?
I don't know.
with the like circle numbers of things.
You're talking about Common Core?
Common Core. We didn't grow up with
Okay,
that.
so but
George gets to do it. Then.
I get to do it?
Yeah.
He is a
Congratulations.
parent, so
Yeah, but my kids are in kindergarten or done with kindergarten today. But like, the way I see it with math is actually what I find funny about Common Core is actually how I've done math in my head forever.
oh
It just wasn't taught that way. I just figured it out on my own.
Yeah, oh,
It's
okay.
basically breaking it down into the lowest common. But the amount that they go in school these days is ridiculous. I think that people should be allowed to do more of math in their head. I think it's healthy for them to do math in their head.
no,
versus
you have to
relying-
show your answer. You gotta show me how you got there.
Well, you know, back
hate math.
in our day, our teachers told us that we wouldn't have a calculator to go around with us all the time, and guess what? We
And
all
guess
have
what?
Cell
You're-
phones
yeah.
now. So in your face.
All right, last one. It looks like some people are interested in us doing more of these
Okay.
live streams. So.
Well, if you guys haven't watched the last one, Mason and I did one a month ago. Initially, we were planning on doing one a month and then filling in the rest of the time with Instagram AMAs, which are weekly, once a week. So if you have a question, I answer as many as I can, for an hour.
I like the AMAs a lot
on
on
Thursday.
Instagram.
I think we'd like to continue doing those. That way, if you want to watch the whole thing, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to sit here for an hour. You can tune into the question you like and fast forward through the rest. So if you want to ask a question, AMAs are the best way to do that. We may end up doing more of these live streams. But it all depends on how many people watch. So if you guys want us to do more live streams and more question and answer content like this, make sure that when you see the notification that we're going live, that you share it with your friends so that we can increase our viewership. Because when we get to the point where we got a lot of viewers tuning in live, that's where we're going to start doing more of them.
That's a good answer. With that, we'll close it out. Just a reminder, for the CPSC ruling to go leave a comment on the regulations page. Go to the link in our pinned video on our YouTube channel. We already talked about it previously. If you really weren't on the stream at that time, just do that as the best thing we can advise. And also, don't panic, don't worry. Things are okay. It's just, we really want to make sure that everybody's united on this, and we'll get through this as a community together.
See you guys later.